The grand traditions of British society have always been defined by an unyielding adherence to protocol, an unspoken agreement that those who represent the Crown must maintain an absolute standard of poise and composure regardless of the circumstances. For centuries, the public has watched the royal family navigate the most demanding events under the intense glare of the global spotlight, expected to remain completely unfazed by the elements, the crowds, or the sheer weight of their public duties. This expectation creates a fascinating contrast between the rigid historical expectations of the monarchy and the undeniable reality of their shared human experience. When the summer months arrive, bringing with them the peak of the social calendar, this balance is tested in ways the public rarely considers. We look at these events as seamless showcases of elegance, where every outfit is perfectly curated, every greeting is meticulously timed, and every gesture is catalogued for history. Yet, beneath the polished surface of these high society gatherings lies a constant struggle against the physical demands of long days, formal attire, and the unpredictable nature of the British summer weather, which can turn a prestigious afternoon into a true test of physical endurance. It is within this world of strict etiquette and historic pageantry that the annual championships at Wimbledon occupy a truly unique position. This is not merely a tennis tournament. It is a cultural institution where the worlds of elite sport and aristocratic tradition collide in a spectacular display of heritage. The lawns of the All England Lawn Tennis and Croquet Club have hosted generations of spectators, each bound by a set of rules that have remained largely unchanged for decades. The atmosphere at SW19 during the height of the tournament is thick with anticipation, drawing global dignitaries, fashion icons, and, most notably, senior members of the royal family who take their places in the legendary royal box. For the viewers watching from home, the event represents the absolute pinnacle of British summer style, a place where tradition is preserved with fierce dedication. Before we delve deeper into how the modern monarchy navigates the subtle challenges of these historic spaces, take a moment to ensure you never miss our deep dives into the hidden realities of royal life by subscribing to the channel and joining our growing community of observers who appreciate the finer details of these timeless events. Understanding the intersection of public duty and personal comfort requires looking beyond the official photographs to see the small, relatable moments that truly define the contemporary royal experience. When the gates opened for the 10th day of the championships, the atmosphere was already charged with a distinct energy. Driven not only by the high-stakes athletic competition on centre court, but also by a relentless summer heatwave that was sweeping across the nation. The pristine green courts and the impeccably dressed crowds in the stands presented a picturesque scene. But beneath that visual perfection, the temperature was climbing rapidly toward a sweltering 32 degrees Celsius. For the average spectator, managing such conditions is a matter of finding shade, wearing light clothing, and staying hydrated. However, for those seated front and center in the royal box, the situation is infinitely more complex due to the uncompromising dress codes that govern the prestigious enclosure. The rules of Wimbledon are famous for their strictness, forbidding women in the royal enclosure from wearing hats, which might obstruct the view of those seated behind them, and mandating formal attire that strictly prohibits garments above the knee. This creates a challenging environment where individuals must remain seated in the direct, scorching sun for hours on end, dressed in heavy formal wear, without the luxury of casual clothing or sun-blocking headwear, transforming an afternoon of sporting entertainment into a quiet battle against heat exhaustion. As the sun beat down on the open-air stadium, all eyes inevitably turned to the arrival of Queen Camilla, who entered the royal box to take in the day's highly anticipated matches. At 78 years old, the Queen has mastered the art of public appearances. understanding that her every movement, expression, and stylistic choice will be analyzed by millions around the world. On this particularly demanding day, she was joined by her younger sister, Annabel Elliot, and other notable members of the extended family, including Peter Phillips and his new wife, Harriet. The royal party appeared as a picture of serene elegance, with the Queen wearing a striking cerulean dress designed by Anna Valentine, a familiar garment that she had previously worn to the Royal Ascot races just a month prior. This choice of wardrobe reflected a practical approach to royal fashion, yet the heavy fabric and formal structure of the dress offered little relief from the rising humidity and the intense solar radiation reflecting off the stadium structures. The immediate surroundings of the royal box offered no escape from the elements, as the historic venue is designed to maximize visibility and tradition rather than modern climate control, leaving the distinguished guests entirely exposed to the elements, despite the punishing heat. The initial stages of the engagement proceeded with the customary warmth and diplomacy that the public has come to expect from the Queen. She was seen smiling warmly as she engaged in lively conversations with tournament officials, former athletes, and the young ball boys and girls who keep the matches running smoothly. Among those who received a personal greeting was former British #1 Heather Watson, alongside dedicated staff members who have spent decades ensuring the operational success of the championships. To the casual observer, it appeared to be just another flawless royal outing and demonstration of poise under pressure, where the discomfort of the physical environment was completely masked by a dedication to public duty. Yet, as the afternoon progressed and the thermometer continued its unrelenting ascent, the atmospheric pressure inside the stadium became impossible to ignore, setting the stage for a subtle but significant departure from standard royal protocol that would soon catch the attention of sharp-eyed observers and spark a widespread conversation online. As the sweltering afternoon advanced and the intense heat inside the historic stadium reached its peak, the atmosphere within the royal box shifted from one of mere observation to a quiet exercise in physical survival. The scorching 32-degree sun left no corner of the open seating sheltered, and for Queen Camilla, the physical toll of sitting in the direct sunlight in a structured, formal cerulean dress became increasingly difficult to conceal. In the early hours of the event, the Queen had attempted to rely on traditional methods of cooling, subtly utilizing a classic, elegant hand fan to stir the heavy air. This initial gesture was entirely keeping with royal precedent, presenting a picture of old-world grace that matched the historical setting of the All England Club. However, as the humidity rose and the air grew completely still, it became abundantly clear that a manual fan was simply not enough to combat the oppressive atmosphere. It was at this moment that sharp-eyed spectators and media cameras caught a highly unusual and deeply human sight, as the 78-year-old monarch reached into her personal belongings and pulled out a modern, battery-powered electric handheld fan. Casting aside the rigid expectations of traditional royal optics in a desperate bid to find immediate physical relief and remain comfortable, this sudden transition from a traditional heirloom to a piece of modern, utilitarian technology immediately caught the attention of the crowd and sparked a massive wave of commentary across digital platforms. Royal commentators and fans alike began to dissect the scene, not with criticism, but with a profound sense of relatability and amusement. On social media platforms like X, users quickly began praising the Queen for her practical, no-nonsense approach to the extreme conditions. One observer commented with deep sympathy that Her Majesty was clearly struggling in the heat and blessed her for finding a solution, while another user jokingly remarked that they would have brought multiple electronic fans just to survive the afternoon. The image of the Queen holding a buzzing plastic device to her face while surrounded by the ultimate symbols of British aristocracy resonated deeply with the public, particularly with women of a similar generation who recognized the universal struggle of managing high temperatures in formal settings. Commentators noted that Camilla was essentially representing everyday individuals over 60 who simply want to stay cool, with many expressing frustration on her behalf regarding the strict Wimbledon dress code that prevents women from wearing protective sun hats or lighter, more casual clothing in the prestigious royal box. However, the true surprise of the afternoon was revealed not just by the presence of the electronic fan itself, but by the specific brand and cost of the device the Queen had chosen to bring to this pinnacle of high society events. While one might naturally assume that a reigning monarch would possess a custom-made, highly expensive cooling apparatus or a luxury designer gadget, a clear view of the back of the device revealed a small, familiar commercial label. Her Majesty had opted for a standard TechNet handheld fan, an incredibly budget-friendly item available to anyone on Amazon for the modest price of just £14.24. This specific model, known for its practical design, features 5 different speed settings to deliver a customizable breeze, highlighting a surprisingly frugal and down-to-earth preference that stood in stark contrast to the immense wealth and privilege surrounding the royal box. The realization that the Queen of the United Kingdom was relying on a cheap, mass-produced online purchase to maintain her composure during a major public appearance added an entirely new layer of fascination to the day, turning a minor moment of personal comfort into a global talking point about the modern monarchy's hidden practicalities. To fully understand the context of this event, it is essential to recognize that this was not an isolated incident of a senior royal succumbing to the harsh realities of the British summer, but rather part of a broader recurring theme within the household during this particularly brutal season. Just a few weeks prior, during the absolute hottest day of June, King Charles himself was observed navigating a remarkably similar struggle during an official reception hosted at St. James's Palace. On that occasion, the outdoor thermometers had climbed to a sizzling 35 degrees Celsius, creating an incredibly challenging environment inside the historic palace walls. Because these centuries-old royal residences were built long before the advent of modern architecture, they completely lack modern air conditioning systems, leaving their grand rooms vulnerable to trapping extreme heat during summer heat waves. On that day, the king was required to mingle with hundreds of guests while dressed in a traditional, heavy formal suit, an outfit that offered zero ventilation and made breaking out into a visible sweat an immediate risk to his public presentation. As the heat within St. James's Palace became completely unmanageable, the king was forced to rely on the quick thinking of his closest advisors to maintain his dignity. His trusted royal aide, Vice Admiral Sir Tony Johnstone Burt, was spotted moving discreetly through the crowds alongside the monarch, holding a compact electronic portable fan directed toward the king to provide a constant stream of cool air as he spoke with dignitaries. Despite this assistance, the conditions were so severe that the king was later seen dabbing his face with a handkerchief, a rare and vulnerable display of physical discomfort from a monarch who has spent his entire life training to hide any sign of personal weakness during public duties. This earlier incident at the palace helps to explain Queen Camilla's decision at Wimbledon, suggesting that the royal family had collectively realized that traditional elegance must sometimes yield to modern technology when dealing with the realities of an escalating global climate, establishing a new precedent where practical electronic gadgets are now viewed as essential tools of the royal trade. Back at Wimbledon, the contrast within the royal box was made even more distinct by the appearance of the other distinguished guests who surrounded the Queen. Her younger sister, Annabelle Elliott, sat directly beside her, channeling the timeless aesthetic of the tournament by wearing an immaculate ivory frock that mirrored the traditional tennis whites worn by the athletes on the court. Meanwhile, higher up in the social circle of the box, Princess Anne's son, Peter Phillips, and his new wife, Harriet, presented a picture of youthful, high-fashion elegance. Harriet Phillips drew the eyes of fashion enthusiasts by wearing a stunning, structured checked lime and blue ensemble from the luxury designer Emilia Wickstead, a garment valued at over £1,300. The presence of this high-end designer fashion, combined with the presence of the All England Club chair Deborah Jevons, created an environment of immense wealth and aesthetic perfection, making Queen Camilla's £14 plastic Amazon fan stand out even more as a bizarre, yet comforting symbol of everyday human reality amidst a sea of aristocratic luxury and unyielding social expectations. This unexpected combination of high-stakes sports, elite societal fashion, and affordable consumer electronics highlights a larger, shifting reality for the modern British monarchy as it navigates the mid-20s. The image of Queen Camilla holding a standard plastic fan at a prestigious tournament reflects a growing public appreciation for moments where the royal family lets down their guard and behaves like regular people. Beyond the immediate drama of the sweltering heat on centre court, the Queen's presence at the tournament provided a massive boost to the event's participants and staff, emphasizing her role as an approachable and supportive figurehead. Before the intense heat forced her to reach for her trusty electronic device, Camilla had spent significant time behind the scenes, engaging in warm interactions that left a lasting impression on everyone she met. Among the most memorable encounters of the morning was a completely spontaneous meeting with a rising British tennis talent, Arthur Ferry, who was preparing to step onto the court for the single most important match of his young career. The young athlete was caught completely off guard in the player entrance, focused on tying his shoelaces ahead of his highly anticipated match against his opponent, Flavio Cobolli, when he suddenly realized the Queen was standing right behind him. As Ferry stood up and turned around, the unexpected royal blessing transformed a moment of intense pre-match nerves into an unforgettable highlight, with the Queen shaking his hand and offering words of encouragement that quickly went viral across sporting networks. This interaction provided a brilliant showcase of the Queen's natural ability to put people at ease, a quality that has become her trademark during public engagements. Beyond the elite players, Camilla also made a point to honor the dedicated individuals who keep the complex machinery of the tournament running smoothly year after year. She spent time speaking with 15-year-old ball girl Ania and ball boy Zebedee, praising their precision under pressure, and shared a meaningful conversation with Morag Ranford, a legendary figure who has spent an incredible 50 years working within the intense environment of the press operations team. She also extended her congratulations to Peter Dobson, the tournament safety officer, who was celebrating his retirement after 25 years of flawless service. These moments of genuine connection illustrate why the public is increasingly willing to overlook minor breaches of traditional protocol, such as using a cheap handheld fan. Because they see a queen who is deeply invested in the people around her, this down-to-earth approach to her public duties becomes even more apparent when looking at her busy schedule leading up to her arrival at SW19. Which saw her traveling across the country to celebrate British cultural history and connect with local communities. Just days before her sweltering afternoon in the royal box, the 78-year-old monarch had been out and about in the cooler, historic landscapes of East Sussex, visiting the enchanting Ashdown Forest near Hartfield. This specific location holds a sacred place in global literature, serving as the original inspiration for the legendary 100-Acre Wood, created by author A.A. Milne. The royal visit was organized to commemorate exactly 100 years since the historic publication of the very first Winnie the Pooh book in 1926, a milestone that aligns perfectly with Camilla's personal passions. As the dedicated patron of the Royal Literary Fund, the Queen has spent decades championing the importance of literacy and storytelling, and this outdoor engagement allowed her to share that passion directly with local school children and enthusiastic well-wishers who had gathered in the forest. Joined by the popular television presenter and author Giles Brandreth, who delivered an animated reading to the gathered crowd, the Queen appeared entirely in her element, surrounded by nature and history. The true highlight of that regional tour, however, occurred when the Queen decided to make an impromptu detour that delighted locals and cemented her reputation as an authentic, charming character. Following her official duties in the forest, she dropped in for a casual lunch at the Half Moon Pub, a traditional British establishment that doubles as a campsite, located in the quiet village of Plumpton. This was not a random choice of location, but rather a nostalgic journey back to her roots, as Plumpton is the exact village where Camilla spent her childhood years. She was raised nearby at The Lanes, a magnificent 7-bedroom historic property that she has publicly described as having been absolutely perfect in every single way. The staff and patrons at the pub were left completely stunned by her unannounced arrival, and the establishment later took to Facebook to share their immense excitement, describing the Queen as a real character and a truly lovely lady who brought immense joy to their afternoon. These regular glimpses into her normal background explain why the public reacts with such warmth when she displays ordinary human traits, like struggling with the summer heat or shopping for affordable items online, when we look at the entire sequence of events. From the breezy woods of East Sussex to the scorching, high-pressure environment of the Wimbledon Royal Box, a clear picture emerges of a modern queen who balances the heavy weight of centuries-old tradition with a refreshing dose of practical reality. The global conversation sparked by her £14 electronic Amazon fan proves that the public no longer demands an artificial, flawless illusion of perfection from the royal family. Instead, contemporary audiences find immense comfort in seeing that senior royals experience the exact same physical challenges as anyone else, whether that means sweating through a historic heatwave, inside an unair-conditioned palace, or finding savvy, budget-friendly ways to stay cool while watching a tennis match. By choosing utility over luxury and comfort over rigid protocol, Queen Camilla demonstrated a deeply relatable sensibility that bridges the gap between the British public and the Crown. As the summer season continues to challenge traditional expectations, these small human moments will undoubtedly remain the ones that define the modern monarchy in the eyes of the world, proving that true dignity is not about hiding our vulnerabilities, but about managing them with grace, humor, and a reliable piece of everyday technology.